Seat. It being 2 p.m, we will move to questions without notice, and as soon as there is silence, I will call Senator McCarthy. Senator McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Birmingham. In 1992, Senator Ron Boswell said, and I quote, "This chamber must be one of the very few, if not the only chamber, of any parliament in the world that does not display its national symbol." His motion to fly the Australian flag in this place was adopted unanimously. Yesterday, during NAIDOC week, this government voted against a motion to display the other official Australian flags, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flags, in this chamber. Why has the Morrison government denied First Nations people the pride of seeing our flags displayed in this chamber?
The Minister representing the Prime Minister. Order. Order. I will call. Senator Birmingham is going to be given an opportunity to at least commence the answer in silence. Order. Senator Wong. Senator Birmingham.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator McCarthy, for the question. And this being NAIDOC week, and this also being Remembrance Day, can I start in responding to your question by acknowledging not only all of those who have served our country as we remember them on Remembrance Day, but also to particularly acknowledge the many Indigenous Australians who have served our country, especially those who served through the early years when indeed their recognition was lacking in many other parts of society, constitutionally, yet they still sought to defend our great nation. In relation to the question that Senator McCarthy has asked about the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flags, the motion that was put yesterday was addressed by Senator Ruston in remarks on behalf of the government, and that the government believes it's appropriate for the Australian national flag to be flown in this chamber. As Senator McCarthy, as you said, in relation to the remarks that Senator Boswell made at the time, that is our national symbol. It is the national flag, and Senator McCarthy, through you, Mr. President, that remains the government's position.
Order. I'll call Senator McCarthy. When there's silence, I would like to hear Senator McCarthy's question. Senator McCarthy, a supplementary question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. The Australian citizenship test includes a section on Australia's flags, the Australian flag, the Aboriginal flag and the Torres Strait Islander flag. Why does the government ask new citizens to recognise these flags when it refuses to let these official Australian flags be flown inside this building?
Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr. President. Well, indeed, as Senator Ruston said in her remarks yesterday, there are a number of occasions, including inside of this building, where the Aboriginal flag and the Torres Strait Islander flag are flown. So it is the case that they are flown inside of this building, and that was not what yesterday's motion related to. That was specific to inside of this chamber. Now, Mr. President, in relation to our national flags, indeed there are, I think, 5 recognised national flags across Australia, but we do, in terms of the citizenship test, obviously see importance in understanding a number of different aspects of Australian society, including the recognition of those flags.
Order. I'll call Senator McCarthy when there's silence. Order. Senator McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Liberal governments in New South Wales, Tasmania and soon South Australia all fly the Aboriginal flag in their parliament. Will the minister, as leader of the government in the Senate, reconsider and support the motion to fly the flags Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander here in the Senate?
Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr. President. Those, of course, are matters for each chamber, each parliament, as is the case. This chamber, no doubt, will consider whatever motions come before it. The government's position has been clearly explained and articulated yesterday. Of course, we will continue at appropriate occasions throughout this building to fly the flags as appropriate.
Order. 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 Can I please have some silence in the chamber? Order. Senator McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is to the Minister for Employment, Skills, Small and Family Business, Senator Cash. Can the minister update the Senate on how the Morrison-McCormick government is supporting employment and skills development in regional and rural Australia?
The Minister for Employment, Skills, Small and Family Business, Senator Cash.
Thank you, Mr President, and I thank Senator Mackenzie for her question and in particular acknowledge her passion for regional and rural Australians. Mr President, regional and rural Australia have no greater friend than those in the Liberal National Government. Our government has stood by rural and regional Australia through its most difficult times. That is because we know that a sustainable economic recovery from COVID-19 it depends on so many of those in rural and regional Australia, which is actually already home to 1 in 3 Australians. Those on this side of the chamber, the government side, we are committed to ensuring that we put in place the right policy framework to ensure that our regions are able to thrive. Why? Because, as we know, when you support our regions, when you support, Senator Mackenzie, our rural communities, you are supporting so much more than that. You are supporting the small business people that live there, that work there, that support the local football club, but more than that, create jobs for other rural and regional Australians. Mr President, we as a government have put in place so many policies to ensure major job creation in the regions, and these of course include our city deals, our regional deals, the Regional Growth Fund and of course the Building Better Regions Fund. But we also have put in place a number of employment programs, in particular to create opportunities for young Australians to go to rural and regional Australia, but also to help our farmers access workers and support training opportunities. The Harvest Trail Services, it connects workers with growers in all harvest areas across Australia. We also have a local jobs program and regional employment trials. They actually place employment facilitators on the ground in 25 regions across Australia. They actually connect people in regional and rural Australia.
Senator Cash. Senator Mackenzie, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. How is the Liberal and Nationals government supporting our regional and rural communities, including small businesses, which has seen the triple shock of droughts, fires and COVID-19 in 2020?
Senator Cash.
Well, Mr President, without a doubt, rural and regional Australia, they have done it tough this year. But we are supporting them with policies that will get people into work, that will support businesses to prosper and grow, that will support them to bring on that new apprentice or trainee. And in fact, over 20,000 regional and rural small businesses are benefiting from our supporting apprentices and trainees wage subsidy. Senator Mackenzie, $227 million in funding is now keeping around 34,000 apprentices and trainees in work on the job in our regions. We've also obviously got our JobKeeper policy and the cash flow boost. We're also providing $4.7 million for regional small businesses to access free financial counselling, because obviously that is just so important for them to navigate through COVID-19. We also have announced over $960 million of initiatives through the Relief and Recovery Fund.
Order.
Rural
Senator
and
Cash,
regional Australia,
time for the answer has
of our—
expired. Senator Mackenzie, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Why is it important for the government to maintain a central focus on the needs of rural and regional Australia?
Senator Cash.
Mr President, as a government we know when rural and regional Australians prosper and grow, they create more jobs for Australians. They benefit our nation as a whole. We in this chamber, we recognise, in particular on the government side, the contribution that people from rural and regional Australians make through industries such as agriculture, mining, manufacturing, tourism, forestry and transport. All of those industries, they don't just impact on rural and regional Australia, they impact on the whole of Australia. But also when you look at our food, rural and regional Australia produce our nation's valuable exports, they grow our food and they supply our energy. We will continue to back rural and regional Australia every step of the way, because as you know, when they prosper and grow, they create more jobs for Australians.
Order. 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 Senator, I'll call Senator Polley when I will be able to hear her. Senator Polley.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister for Families and Social Services, Senator Ruston. How many unemployed Australians are there for every job vacancy right now? And how would the Morrison government's decision to reduce the coronavirus supplement by $100 a fortnight help those Australians in need and support job creation and the economy?
The Minister for Families and Social Services, Senator Ruston.
Well, thank you very much, Mr President, and I thank Senator Polley very much for her question, because it's obviously a very important issue this week. But I would make a couple of points before I go to the direct question that you asked, Senator Polley. First of all, the decision that has been made by the Morrison government that was announced yesterday by me and the Prime Minister related to the extension of temporary measures. And I would point out that when a government spends $3.2 billion, you can hardly refer that as a cut. So $3.2 billion of additional funding will be made available to Australians in the first 3 months of 2021 to continue to provide elevated levels of support for people, particularly those people that have been hardest hit by the COVID pandemic. But I would also like the opportunity to advise the chamber that not only has the coronavirus been extended on the 25th of September, and it will be again extended on the 1st of January for a further 3 months, but there are a number of other very important measures, and I know Senator Siewert will probably understand the importance of some of these other measures, whereas perhaps you are not particularly interested in them on the other side, and that is by extending the eligibility criteria. Many more Australians who otherwise would previously have not have been able to get access to payment currently are being able to get access to payment. I refer to people
Senator Watt.
On relevance, Mr President, the Minister did promise us that at some point she'd get to answering the question. How many unemployed Australians are there for every job vacancy right now?
That was the first part of the question. Senator Watt, I've allowed you to remind the Minister of that. The second part was somewhat more general, referring to other factors. I can't instruct the Minister which part of a question to answer or to be directly relevant to. Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr President. Well, the really good news is that the ANZ Jobs Data has actually indicated that from September to October we've had a 9.4% increase in the number of job advertisements. We have also
Senator Wong,
seen
on a point of order. Senator Wong.
9 seconds. There was a question that the minister should be able to answer, which is how many unemployed people for every job vacancy.
And I remind the Senate that was the first part of the question, Senator Wong. There was a second part of a lengthier second part of the question. Senator Wong, please. Specific questions have very tight tests for direct relevance. The second part of the question was much more general in nature, and the minister, by talking about that particular statistic, in my view, is directly relevant to that part of the question. Senator Ruston.
There are a range of measures in relation to the number of job vacancies, and depending on which measure you use would depend on what answer one would get.
Order. Senator. I'll call Senator Polley when I can hear her. Senator Polley, a supplementary question.
I'm so glad I've got a supplementary. With 1.8 million Australians relying on JobSeeker by Christmas, what is the economic impact of your decision to further reduce the coronavirus supplement by $100 a fortnight?
Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr President, and thank you, Senator Polley, for your follow-up question. Senator Polley, there will be a positive impact for an additional $3.2 billion being made available to Australians in the first 3 months of 2021. You cannot characterise an increase in spending of $3.2 billion as a cut, and equally you cannot suggest that there is going to be an economic negative impact on the economy of additional spending of $3.2 billion. Now, I'm not sure whether you're just do not understand the budgetary process and how that works, or whether you're genuinely trying to be disingenuous about the question.
Senator Polley, on a point of order.
The question isn't whether I understand. The question is the minister herself doesn't understand that there's 1.8 million unemployed
Senator Polley, that's not a point of order. The minister is being directly relevant. I can't put words in the minister's mouth, but she is being directly relevant to the question asked. There's a time to debate answers after question time. Senator Ruston.
Well, thank you very much, Mr President. As I was saying, $3.2 billion into the economy will have a positive economic impact
in the economy. And the fact that those opposites seem to misunderstand what additional spending that's been announced. This was not in the budget. This was announced yesterday. It will be part of my EFO. It is new spending, $3.2 billion.
Senator Ruston, time for the answers expired. Senator Polley, a final supplementary question.
Australia is enduring the worst recession in almost 100 years. We have record levels of unemployment that continue to rise, and there are currently 7 job seekers for every available job in Australia today. Why is now the right time to be reducing support for Australians without work and withdrawing critical support from the economy?
Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr President. Well, I will reiterate the fact that I think Senator Polley has couched the question in completely the wrong terms. $3.2 billion of additional spending is not removing money from the economy. But what I would say is the reason that the government has made the decision to extend the coronavirus supplement post the 1st of January is because we recognise that whilst the economy is showing signs of recovery, in fact the Reserve Bank Governor, Mr Lowe, said last week that the Australian economy was well underway in terms of its economic recovery. But it is in its early stages, and that is why we have extended the supplement. It is why we have extended the expanded measures to allow extra people to be able to get onto payment, people who are self-employed, people who are sole traders, people who are caring for somebody who may have the coronavirus or may have it themselves, people who've been stood down. We're waiving waiting periods. We've continued elevated levels for people on partner income. To couch it in other terms
Senator
is
Ruston,
disingenuous.
time for the answers expired. Senator Siewert.
Thank you, Mr President. Mr President, my question is to the Minister for Families and Social Services, Senator Ruston. Minister, will you confirm that the government will never make job seekers ever have to rely on a job seeker payment of just $40 a day again? And if so, when will you, as a government, move to ensure that there is a permanent increase to the job seeker payment?
Minister for Families and Social Services, Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr President, and thanks, Senator Siewert, very much for a question and for her absolutely genuine interest in this particular area of government policy. However, what I can say to Senator Siewert is that we still remain very much in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. Nobody knows where this is going to end or when it's going to end. I don't think any of us have got a crystal ball. And we've only got to look at what happened in Victoria in July. Almost overnight, the Australian economy, which had been doing fabulously well to that stage, both economically and as a health response, was plunged back into a level of crisis in one of our states, Victoria, and we saw the devastating consequences that has had on the Victorian community, on the Victorian economy, and obviously the health, the livelihoods and the tragic loss of life that we have seen in Victoria during that time. And equally, if you look overseas at the moment, there has been absolute devastation wreaked in many countries in the Northern Hemisphere by the acceleration of the spread of this particular virus. So we know we're in the midst of a pandemic, and so right now this government is absolutely focused on continuing to provide the type of additional supports that we have promised and we've delivered right from the start of this pandemic. We said that we would stand side by side with Australians who were most impacted by the pandemic, and we've done that through a myriad of measures, through measures that Senator Cash has put in place, measures that Minister Hunt's put in place, measures that I myself have had responsibility for putting in place. And we will continue to respond to the health and the economic conditions to make sure that we provide additional supports while we see how this pandemic plays out. So right now, Senator Siewert, I remain absolutely committed to looking at the economic and health conditions that are before us and making decisions in relation to the welfare budget and the welfare policy that I administer to make sure that we continue to support Australians through this
Senator
pandemic.
Ruston. Senator Siewert, a supplementary question.
Under what conditions could the minister ever conceive that it would be possible for people to survive on a job seeker payment of $40 a day? And I ask again, will you commit that no Australian will ever have to live on that sort of payment ever again?
Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, and thank you once again, Senator Siewert. Senator Siewert, as you and I both well know, there would be a very rare Australian who only received the base rate of payment. One of the absolutely defining features of Australia's welfare system is the targeted and comprehensive nature of the supports that are in place for Australians, to make sure that those supports are particularly targeted to the needs of the individual.
Order. Senator Siewert on a point of order.
I did ask under what circumstances could the minister ever conceive being able to survive on job seeker payment of $40 a day. Could you ask the minister to address that specific issue, please?
Well, I can't ask the minister to address one part of the question. I've allowed you to reminder of that. You had a second part of the question restating your original one. You've reminded the minister of your preference. I'll call her. She has 32 seconds to continue.
Thank you very much, Mr President. And as I said in my opening sentence in response to your supplementary question, Senator Siewert, there would be very, very few Australians who would be receiving only the base payment for welfare payments. And as you are very well aware, somebody who is on an income support payment, who has children, is eligible for the maximum amount of family tax benefit, both A and B. People who
Order. Senator Ruston, time for the answers expired. Senator Siewert, a final supplementary question.
Minister, do people who have drawn down on their superannuation, is that counted in the liquid assets test for somebody applying for the job seeker payment?
Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr President. Well, Senator Siewert, the specific nature of the assets that are held by an individual would be determined by the circumstances of that individual as to whether those assets were or considered as part of any asset test. In some circumstances, Senator Siewert, in some circumstances, the superannuation may be considered in the liquid asset test. However, I would actually point out to this chamber that the fundamental basis of our welfare system has never changed. It remains the same today as it has always been. We are very consistent, and that is that the Australian welfare system expects Australians to rely and draw down on their own resources before they ask taxpayers of Australia to support them. The taxpayers of Australia, I can probably speak for them to say, they are more than happy to help other Australians. But the basic and fundamental premise that people support themselves first has never changed.
Order. Senator O'Neill. Senator Hughes.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Communications, Cyber Safety and the Arts, Senator Reynolds. Can the Minister inform the Senate how the Morrison-McCormack government is backing and delivering for regional Australia by improving mobile coverage in rural and regional areas of Australia?
The Minister representing the Minister for Communications, Cyber Safety and the Arts, Senator Reynolds.
Thank you very much, Mr President,
Order.
and I thank Senator Hughes for that question and for her commitment to everybody in rural and regional, particularly New South Wales. So thank you. The Morrison-McCormack government remains absolutely committed to improving mobile phone coverage in rural and regional areas of Australia. Mobile phone coverage, as those on this side of the chamber absolutely get, is vital to people living, working and also travelling across regional and remote Australia. That's why this government has committed $380 million in our Mobile Black Spots program. The first 5 rounds of the program have generated in private, government and community investment $836 million, which have funded over 1,200 mobile base stations right across our nation. And of that, over 880 of these base stations have been activated, delivering real benefits now to regional and rural communities right across our nation. And today there are 580 Telstra base stations that have enabled over 44,000 000 emergency calls. Now, the next round of the Mobile Black Spot program is focused on testing different program designs to expand and also to improve regional and remote coverage. Our record stands in the starkest possible contrast to the record of those opposite, who did not build not a single black spot tower in their 6 years in government. And only a Morrison and McCormack government can deliver improved connectivity for regional and rural Australians.
Senator Hughes, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Can the minister update the Senate on how the government is strengthening telecommunications resilience during natural disasters and emergencies?
Senator Reynolds.
Thank you very much, Mr President. The Morrison-McCormack government has committed more than $2 billion to help Australian communities recover and rebuild from the devastating impacts of the Black Summer bushfires. Our investment in telecommunications resilience is a vital part of that investment. In May, the Minister for Communications announced a $37.1 million package to prevent, to mitigate and to manage telecommunications outages in emergencies, particularly bushfires. And this package includes 4 key initiatives. First, we are already strengthening the resilience of regional and remote telecommunication networks through mobile network hardening. Secondly, we're providing more deployable telecommunication infrastructure. Thirdly, we're providing better telecommunications for rural and country fire service depots and also for evacuation centres. And fourthly, we are raising community awareness about access to telecommunications.
Senator Hughes, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Minister, how does the government's work strengthen telecommunications resilience during emergencies, including in bushfire-affected areas of the Hunter, build up the success of our mobile black spots program?
Senator Reynolds. Order.
Facts and the contrast between what their government did and what we are, or not as the case may be, and what we are now doing. This package is further strengthening the resilience of regional and remote telecommunications through mobile network hardening and more temporary deployable infrastructure. NBN Co has already delivered the first road muster truck, along with a first satellite flyaway kit. Nationally, over 150 mobile sites funded through the first 5 rounds of the Mobile Black Spot program are in bushfire-prone or affected areas. And of these, 114 sites have already been built, which I'm sure those opposite will be great to know. And at Howes Valley, a new base station was switched on in January of this year. And in March, another station begins operation at McCulley's Gap. These targeted investments are helping regional communities to better deal with emergencies.
Senator Farrell.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Birmingham. A former Liberal government advisor with whom Minister Tudge had a relationship has lodged a formal complaint detailing workplace bullying she experienced from Mr Tudge. The former staff member describes that after being publicly berated by him on a flight home, she, and I quote, ended up in tears on the plane. The person sitting next to me gave me a very awkward smile and tried to cheer me up. They had witnessed the whole thing and it was very humiliating. Does the Prime Minister believe Minister Tudge's behaviour meets the standards he expects of ministers in his government?
Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr President. I note there was a key word missing from Senator Farrell's question, and that was the word alleged. However, I do note and understand from public reports. I understand from public reports that a complaint has been made to the Department of Finance. As I detailed in response to Senator Waters' question yesterday, there are well-established procedures in relation to the handling of those complaints, and they are handled very much independently of government and in a confidential and thorough way, in the way in which the department handles those complaints. That proper process ought to be followed, and I have confidence the Department of Finance will follow it.
Senator Farrell, supplementary question.
Yes, I do have one. Thank you, Mr President. This morning, Minister Ruston revealed that the Prime Minister has spoken to both Minister Tudge and the complainant. Is the Prime Minister personally investigating the matter, and what action is the Prime Minister taking?
Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr President. Well, Senator Ruston informs me that she said that the Prime Minister had spoken to Minister Tudge and the Attorney-General in relation to the matters aired this week. I don't believe that Minister Ruston said as you have suggested, Senator Farrell.
Senator Farrell, a final supplementary question.
Well, I didn't get an answer to my question about what action the Prime Minister was taking, but in 2018, Senator Reynolds told the Senate she was greatly distressed and disturbed by bullying of women in the coalition government, declaring it, and I quote, "has no place in my party." Does the Prime Minister agree with Senator Reynolds, and if so, what action is he personally taking to fix the culture within his government?
Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr. President. Well, I can certainly tell Senator Farrell and the Senate, as is publicly known, that the Liberal Party has taken action at a national level over the last couple of years in terms of the application of new codes of conduct that have been extensively developed and applied by our national party. This is obviously in addition to and separate from the type of processes that I referred to in relation to parliamentary staff and the operation of the Department of Finance in that regard. We also, at the last election, I note, welcomed that 7 of the 14 new Liberal members of Parliament elected were women to our ranks. Our cabinet of 6 women, including Senator Reynolds, makes sure that our government has a very strong, very firm focus on being as inclusive as possible of all Australians in how we consider and assess policy, how we engage across our country, and indeed how we engage with one another.
Senator McDonald.
My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Resources, Water and Northern Australia, Senator Ruston. Northern Australia is abundant in opportunity, providing the resources, an array of natural environments for agriculture and tourism, and an accessible Asian market. From Cloncurry, Tennant Creek to Townsville, Burdekin to Broome, Carnarvon across to Cairns, and all the places in between, we have the right people and natural assets to drive the North's future. Can the Minister update the Senate on how the Morrison-McCormack government is helping to build Northern Australia and ensuring the North has a key role in rebuilding as we emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic?
Order. Particularly while the question is being asked, ideally at all times, but particularly while the question is being asked. The Minister representing the Minister for Resources, Water and Northern Australia, Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And it gives me great pleasure to be able to stand up and talk about the extraordinary importance of Northern Australia to the social and economic fabric of this nation. Those officers will be probably not surprised to hear that Northern Australia has been hit really hard by the COVID pandemic, and nobody would understand that better than many of our National Party colleagues at the other end of the chamber, some of them who actually live in that region. And that's why this budget had a raft of measures to be able to support people living in Northern Australia. In fact, we have invested more than $4.15 billion for new initiatives to create jobs and to accelerate economic recovery from COVID-19 in the northern part of our country. We're also investing more than $3 billion in defence funding through Senator Reynolds' portfolio for our facilities in Northern Australia. We will also ensure that Northern Australia continues to play an absolutely pivotal role in the safety and security of all Australians. We'll also continue to invest in the safe and efficient northern transport corridors with a further $655 million investment in road infrastructure across the north of our country. This includes $120 million to upgrade the Carpentaria Highway in the Northern Territory, a road of which I've driven on, and also $38 million for the Cape York Community Access Road from Cooktown to Weipa, a road on which I've driven on. $20.6 million for the Great Northern Highway from Broome to Kununurra as well, a road that I have driven on. Furthermore, we've invested a further $124.5 million for mapping mineral resources into high potential corridors as part of the Exploring for the Future program. We are absolutely committed as a government of understanding the importance of the regions. We're backing people from Northern Australia.
Senator McDonald, a supplementary question.
Can the Minister outline how our government's 2020-21 budget announcement regarding our Northern Australia infrastructure facility reforms will turbocharge the North and help drive new industries, innovation, strengthen small businesses and create jobs for Northern Australia?
Order on my left. Order. Senator McKenzie, Senator Green. Senator Watt, you're back under instructions to count to 10 after I call your name. Senator Ruston,
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Well, I can assure this place that the NAIF is playing a really key role in supporting Northern Australia during these challenging times. In fact, the Morrison-McCormack government is working tirelessly to create and to deliver jobs and economic development for people living in the Northern Australia. And the fund has been designed to fill the gaps where projects would not be delivered if they relied on traditional sources of funding. The Northern Australia Infrastructure Facility has now committed $2.4 billion of the $5 billion war chest. Of this $2.4 billion, approximately $1.1 billion worth of projects have now reached critical milestones of contractual close between the NAIF and the project proponents. We've adjusted the NAIF's risk appetite and expanded the range of potential projects in which they can invest. Our government continues to deliver on its commitments. We're delivering for the people of Northern Australia.
Senator McDonald, the final supplementary question. Silence during the question. Senator McDonald.
Is the minister aware of any risks to the Liberal National Government's approach in securing a brighter, bolder future for Northern Australia?
I'll call Senator Ruston when there's silence. Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and I thank Senator McDonald for her really important question around the risks that are facing Northern Australia. But firstly, can I say we are absolutely committed as a government for delivering for Northern Australia, and that means economic infrastructure, and that means delivering on economic opportunities for Northern Australia. In fact, as of the 30th of October, the NAIF has made 23 investment decisions, 10 projects in Queensland, 6 projects in Western Australia and 8 projects in the Northern Territory, $6.6 billion worth of economic benefit and supporting 7,800 jobs. However, the NAIF is being weighed down by the lengthy approval times the ALP governments in Queensland, Western Australia and the Northern Territory. The time it takes for these decisions to be made to enable these projects to progress is totally unacceptable. More infrastructure means more jobs, and I would recommend you lobby your colleagues in those governments to get out of the way.
Senator Ruston. Order. Senator Waters.
Thanks, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Birmingham. Ever since Four Corners aired on Monday, government members have been referencing the existing Finance Department complaints process and implying that it's adequate. But the department's own information says, in relation to bullying and harassment, quote, where a complaint is substantiated, Finance has no capacity to take disciplinary action against either a parliamentarian or a MOPS Act employee, end quote. Does the minister consider a process that has no disciplinary action is satisfactory to stop sexual harassment and keep women safe in their workplace?
The Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr. President, and I thank Senator Waters for her question. The Finance Department process is an important process, and it's important because it is conducted independently, thoroughly, rigorously in terms of the approach that Finance takes. As I said to this chamber yesterday, it is independent in a manner in which I, for example, as the Minister, am not informed of the details of a complaint that are made, and that's a crucial part of its independence. I'm only aware of the complaint that was referenced in response to Senator Farrell before, because the complainant herself chose to make the matter public via the media. So that underlines and underscores the independence and impartiality of the process. In terms, of course, of elected officials to this place, as Senator Waters is well aware, the standards, the privileges, the procedures in relation to elected officials are quite unique in that regard, and it is, Mr. President, important that we ensure, though, that there is a process for complaints to be heard, to be investigated, and for assistance to be offered through not just those processes but others in terms of individuals concerned.
Senator Waters, a supplementary question.
Thank you, President. Does the minister agree that any decisions to investigate compliance or take disciplinary action in relation to breaches of the Prime Minister's ministerial statement of ministerial standards are at the sole discretion of the Prime Minister rather than an independent body?
Senator Birmingham.
Well, Mr. President, the Prime Minister's Ministerial Code of Conduct, which is a very strong code of conduct, is indeed just that, the Prime Minister's Ministerial Code of Conduct.
Senator Waters, the final supplementary question.
Thanks, President. The Greens' bill for a code of conduct for all parliamentarians with an independent process for complaints with penalties was inquired into, and the big parties said it wasn't needed. Government members said, quote, the better approach would be to identify gaps, if any, in the existing regimes and implement measures to address those gaps, end quote. Does the minister agree that the absence of an independent body with the power to take disciplinary action against parliamentarians is a gap, and what are you doing about it?
Senator Birmingham.
Mr President, as I said to Senator Waters yesterday, and indeed extended the invitation to all members and senators, it is absolutely possible, if anybody wishes to engage with the Department of Finance, seek briefing from them about the process in which they conduct their investigations, the way in which those investigations are handled, including the conclusion of those investigations. I am happy to ensure the department facilitates those discussions.
Senator Gallagher.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Birmingham. Monday night's Four Corners program aired offensive and sexist comments made by the Attorney-General, and a highly respected barrister familiar with his character and conduct queried the Attorney-General's integrity by saying deeply sexist and actually misogynist in his treatment of women in the way that he spoke about women. The Australian Human Rights Commission has conducted a national inquiry into sexual harassment in Australian workplaces. More than 6 months later, the Morrison government has still not responded. Why is a man described as deeply sexist and misogynistic responsible for responding to this landmark report?
The Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr President. Well, from what I understand of the episode that aired on Monday night, it had reflections, indeed, that went back many years and for which the Attorney-General, in his statement subsequently, acknowledged and indeed apologised for things that were written when he was a university student, and acknowledged they are not the type of things he would write, say or indeed hold views relevant to today. And so, Mr President, I think the Attorney-General indeed addressed those remarks, and I have no doubt, as I said yesterday in response to a question on this report, that when it is responded to, it will go through all of the proper processes in relation to the preparation of government response, and that will involve the engagement of the Office of Women in Senator Payne's portfolio, of Safe Work Australia, of the Attorney-General's Department, and indeed of any other relevant agency in the construct of that response.
Senator McAllister. Senator Gallagher, a supplementary question.
Can the minister confirm that the Morrison government's Internal Governance Committee of Cabinet, which is tasked with providing advice and oversight on integrity issues, including the ministerial standards, is comprised of 4 men: Mr Morrison, Mr Frydenberg, Mr McCormack and Mr Porter? Why is not a single woman on the committee responsible for oversight of integrity issues and ministerial standards?
Senator Birmingham.
Mr President, I think that list of cabinet committees is public. It's there for all to see, and it involves a construction in relation to that committee. Order. It is a long-standing construction based upon the portfolios or positions held.
Order. Order. I will call order on my left, Senator O'Neill.
So no room for women in there.
Senator Gallagher.
All right. Given what he knows about the Attorney-General, does the Prime Minister truly believe he should be responsible for creating Australia's first Commonwealth Integrity Commission?
Senator Birmingham.
Yes, Mr President, absolutely. The Attorney-General is a skilled officer in terms of his application as Attorney-General. He has worked in terms of the development of the Commonwealth Integrity Commission, as we outlined yesterday clearly to this chamber, in terms of developing the draft legislation for that, of giving detailed consideration to it, and of seeking to make sure that in designing that Commonwealth Integrity Commission we clearly have, in path to legislation, an Integrity Commission that provides clearly for building upon the various aspects of scrutiny and function right across government at present, and ensuring that they operate in a more integrated, effective way, and delivering the appropriate type of oversight to them and additional functions to integrity across government.
Senator McMahon.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Resources, Water and Northern Australia, Senator Ruston. Minister, I recently travelled to the Beetaloo Basin in the Northern Territory, and the region is certainly buzzing with activity.
Order.
It is definitely an exciting time to be a Territorian, and the Beetaloo presents a once-in-a-generation opportunity for job creation and economic growth. Can the Minister update the Senate on the Morrison-McCormack government's plans to develop new untapped gas resources, like the Beetaloo Basin, which will fuel new manufacturing ventures across the Northern Territory and help our national economy to emerge from COVID-19?
Order. Minister representing the Minister for Resources, Water and Northern Australia, Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr President. Well, the Morrison government is a very strong supporter of the resources industry, and as Senator McMahon knows, the resources and energy sector plays a critical role in creating jobs and investment in regional Australia, particularly in her home territory of the Northern Territory. And the sector has always been an absolute key pillar of Australia's economic prosperity. It's one of the largest employers and its workforce also employs the highest proportion of Indigenous Australians, 3.8% in comparison to 1.7% for all other industries. The sector will also be crucial for Australia's recovery from the COVID pandemic. Recent figures have confirmed that the strength of the sector, which generated $290 billion in exports in 2019-20, despite the very challenging operating environment we all found ourselves in over the last year. Our government is absolutely committed to working with the sector to bring on the next wave of investment on new oil and gas developments. In fact, the Prime Minister said very recently, central to our agenda is getting access to our domestic gas supplies. So we're absolutely committed to remaining a top LNG exporter, and that's why we are investing in gas-fired recovery as part of our Job Maker plan. Our investment of $52.9 million in the 2021 budget focuses on three very specific key areas of the gas supply chain: $10.9 million for gas infrastructure plan, $28.3 million for 5 strategic basin plans to unlock new gas potential, starting with the Beetaloo Basin, $13.7 million to extend the CSIRO's Gas Industry Social and Environmental Research Alliance. We want affordable gas for manufacturers, for businesses and for households. We want Australian gas to work for all Australians.
Senator McMahon, a supplementary question.
Can the Minister update the Senate on how the continued development of our abundant gas resources is helping to build new industries and create new jobs across regional and rural Australia, particularly across the Northern Territory?
Order. Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr President. Well, Senator McMahon, to encourage investment in gas developments and unlock additional supply, our government, the Morrison-McCormack government, will set new gas supply targets with the states and territories, will enforce a use it or lose it requirement on gas licences, and will deliver 5 new strategic basin plans to unlock that gas potential. The government's strategic basin plan for Beetaloo will accelerate the exploration and development of that basin. The Beetaloo Basin has the potential to be a new world-class shale gas province, with an estimated 178,000 petajoules of shale gas. Is larger than any other known gas resource off the northwest shelf. And economic modelling suggests that the development of the gas resource in the Beetaloo Basin could contribute upwards of 6,000 jobs for Australians and $36.8 billion in GDP by 2040.
Order. Senator McMahon, a final supplementary question.
Is the Minister aware of any risks to the coalition government's approach in securing a gas-fired recovery in the Northern Territory?
Order. Senator Watt. Order. Senator McKenzie. Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr President. Well, the Morrison-McCormack government is absolutely unashamedly vocal in its support of our resource sector and our energy sector. A gas-led recovery was central to our budget and the nation's economic recovery, and the actions taken by our government have assisted in lowering gas prices and ensuring supply to manufacturers, industry and to households. We are a government that delivers on our commitments. We're delighted that the ALP government in the Northern Territory has actually signalled its intent to support downstream industries through the gas development strategy. Unfortunately, not everyone in this parliament has the same commitment to that development. Labor claim they support jobs in the resources sector, but the party is completely divided in this. It's more interested in inner-city votes and jobs than the economic development of rural and regional Australia, an area that I know, Senator McMahon, you are absolutely passionate in supporting.
Senator Ruston. Senator McAllister.
Thank you very much, Mr President. My question is to the Minister for Families and Social Services, Senator Ruston. When I asked the minister about the budget measure for ongoing funding for 1800 Respect, the minister insisted that, and I quote, "It is not a re-announcement, it is a new announcement," and she promised to return to the Senate that day to correct the record if she were wrong. When I followed up during estimates, the minister asked to correct the record and said, and I quote, "I used the word announcement, I should have used the word measure." Can the minister confirm that in her answer provided on the 7th of October she was wrong and that the budget measure was in fact a re-announcement? Why did the minister fail to return to the Senate to correct the record at her earliest opportunity?
Minister for Families and Social Services, Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr President, and thank you, Senator McAllister, and thank you very much for the opportunity that you provided me during estimates to re-establish, well, to advise you that I did, in fact, refer to a measure in the budget by an incorrect term. I said announcement. Correctly, it was a measure. In fact, and I'm quite happy to accept the fact that it was a measure. In fact, the measures that are in the budget, and there were two measures that were contained in the budget that were for the first time funded in the budget, and they relate to the funding for 1800 Respect and also an extension of the Help Is Here campaign. And Senator McAllister, I am quite happy to stand here and acknowledge that the statement that I provided to you in the budget estimates that we were in together a couple of weeks ago that
Senator
I made.
McAllister, on a point of order.
My point of order goes to relevance, Mr President. I did ask for the minister to explain why she failed to return to the Senate to correct the record. It is an important question, given the protocols of this place.
Senator McAllister, that was part of your question. There are parts of your question I believe the minister is being directly relevant to by addressing the statement and the correction, and so I call her to continue.
Thank you very much, Mr President. Well, Senator McAllister, I am quite happy to say that the comments that I made to you in response to some questions that you asked me during estimates, I'm quite happy to make them here again. In response to a question from you in this place, I incorrectly referred to a measure as an announcement. It was a new measure in the budget. It had previously been announced as a budget measure, which is not unusual for budget measures that you pre-announce them. In fact, there are many, many budget measures that are pre-announced, and you would have done the same thing when you were in government. So I accept that I made that statement to you. I did use the word announcement when I should have used the word measure, but there were new measures in the budget. There were measures, as I said, in relation to the 1800 Respect number, which is a tremendously important hotline for women who are the victims of domestic violence to be able to contact to find out where they may be able to receive help should they find themselves the victims of domestic violence. Equally, the Help Is Here campaign provides women with similar advice.
Ruston. Senator McAllister, a supplementary question.
Thanks, Mr President. Last month I asked the minister a question on notice about expenditure on domestic violence programs. The minister transferred the question to the Minister for Women, who answered this week by saying the question should have been asked of this minister. Who is right, the Minister for Families and Social Services or the Minister for Women? Why did the minister refuse to answer a question about expenditure in her portfolio?
Senator Ruston.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My understanding is the question that you have asked is best responded to by my agency, and my understanding is that question has been referred to my agency. If the agency mistakenly referred it to the wrong minister, I will regret that. However, I will take responsibility for answering the question. It was a very detailed question in relation to expenditure, and I will take it to confirm here, Senator McAllister, that I will provide you in the most timely manner a quick response to the question that you have asked in relation to budget expenditure. It is a very detailed question that you've asked, but I will undertake to provide you with the details of the answer to your question at the soonest possible time.
Senator McAllister, a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Why is the minister, who is a member of ERC, unable to accurately answer questions about expenditure in her portfolio?
Senator Ruston.
Well, I'm not quite sure what the senator is referring to. I have not refused to answer questions. What I've said is that the question that you asked in relation to this expenditure was a very detailed question. I have committed to undertake to provide you with that information. But what I can tell you about expenditure is that this government made the single largest ever investment in supporting women for domestic violence through the $340 million that we put behind the fourth action plan for protecting Australia's women and their children from family and domestic violence. In addition to that, an immediate response to the COVID pandemic, when we were concerned that we'd see an uptick in domestic violence against women and their children, we then made a $150 million announcement where we provided almost all of that money directly to frontline services that are provided by the states and territories, so that they were in a position to be able to immediately respond with an increase in domestic violence should it occur within their jurisdiction. So, Senator, I can assure you I know about expenditure in domestic violence because this government.
Expired. Senator Stoker.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is for the Minister representing the Minister for Home Affairs, Senator Cash. In the wake of horrific events in Vienna and in Paris, can the Minister outline to the Senate how the Morrison government is equipping our law enforcement agencies with the resources they need to keep Australians safe from violent extremism?
The Minister representing the Minister for Home Affairs, Senator Cash.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I thank Senator Stoker for what is an extremely important question. Mr. President, the recent events of terrorism in both Paris and Vienna were shocking. The Morrison government is committed to ensuring we do not see similar violence enacted here in Australia. Our first priority is to keep the community safe from those who wish to do us harm. We may be in the middle of a global pandemic, but the threat of terrorism remains in Australia, as it does in other places around the world. Since the national terrorism threat level was raised in September 2014, there have been 7 attacks and 18 major disruption operations in response to imminent attacks that were being planned on Australians. 116 people have been charged as a result of counter-terrorism operations. There are currently 22 people before the courts for terrorism-related offences. To respond to this threat, the coalition government has passed 20 tranches of legislation. This legislation includes to create a presumption against bail and parole for persons who have demonstrated support for or links to terrorist activity, to enable the continued detention of high-risk terrorists and strengthen control orders to minimise the threat to the Australian public, to establish the Temporary Exclusion Order Scheme, which gives law enforcement and security agencies greater control and certainty in managing Australians of interest returning to Australia, including foreign fighters. We have also invested as a government more than $61 million to support programs to counter violent extremism. Our laws and arrangements focus on threat and criminality, regardless
time for the
of
answer
ideology.
has expired. Senator Stoker, a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. President. With Australians spending more time online than ever due to the COVID restrictions we've faced this year, what steps has the government taken to fight violent extremism online and to fight the risk of terrorism and keep Australians safe?
Senator Cash.
Well, Mr President, the government's position is very clear. The rule of law must apply online as it does offline. COVID-19 has actually increased the likelihood that people vulnerable to extremist rhetoric will find platforms hosting extremist content. In fact, at a time when most people across the globe have been spending more time online, efforts to prevent terrorist and violent extremist exploitation of the internet are critical. Following the events in Christchurch in 2019, Australia acted quickly to legislate new laws to prevent the misuse of online platforms. Additionally, Australia is advocating to deepen international norms and support the development of common industry standard to counter terrorist and violent extremist content online. The government is also working with international partners, digital industry and civil society to improve transparency.
Order, Senator Cash. Senator Stoker, a final supplementary question.
Minister, how is the government increasing investment in our law enforcement agencies so that they can keep Australians safe?
Senator Cash.
Well, Mr President, as we know, COVID-19 has not ended the threat of terrorism and criminal activity. And the recent budget that the Morrison government handed down prepares Australia's law enforcement agencies to deal with terrorist and criminal threats to keep Australians safe. This year alone, the government has invested $8.2 billion across the Home Affairs portfolio. The budget is also providing an additional $300 million over 4 years to enhance the AFP's search capacity and ability to respond to emerging threats, including terrorist threats. This investment is designed to defeat all of those who are involved in activities that most Australians actually don't know anything about: the underworld, the dark web and the networks that these criminal syndicates operate to do us harm and to seek profit at the expense of Australian citizens. Mr President, this builds on last year's budget investment.
Senator Cash. Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, Mr President. I ask that further questions be placed on notice.